Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Siskawati. I'm from A1-2019 and today I'm going to present my research proposal, and the topic of this research is teaching reading narrative text using Wattpad to grade 10 vocational school students through WhatsApp group. And the background of this research is that language has a central role in intellectual, social, and emotional development of students, and also as a supporter of success in studying all areas of study. Language learning is expected to help students to get to know themselves, their cultures, and other people's cultures. In addition, language learning also helps students to be able to express ideas and feelings, participate in society, and even discover and use the analytical and imaginative skills that exist within them. Language means communicating orally and writing. It is also refers to understand and express information, thoughts, feelings, and as a branch of knowing and understanding the development of science, technology, art, and culture. English has four important skills that should be owned by English learners to complete communications. English skills are divided into two kind of groups. There are receptive and productive. Receptive consists two of skills, listening and reading. It is an input component of language in which these skills are being the first or the roots of skills to be improved and owned by English learner before they jump into the next level of English skills that called producing. It is also being the most important skills for the learners to gain information, while productive consists of speaking and writing. Reading is an important skill for students and it could make a greater progress. Also, development in any other areas of learning if it's being strength. Wattpad offers many great possibilities for improving in enriching reading and reading experiences. It also gives and offers a free services of digital environment and experimental environment. Feedback for all people. In the other hand, Wattpad also featuring a picture input in the services so that the reader thinks that a good learning media for the students to read narrative text. And the research question of this research are the first, how is the scenario and implementation of teaching reading narrative text using scientific approach with ICT to grade 10 vocational school students? The second is, what is teacher and students' responses toward teaching reading narrative text using scientific approach with ICT to grade 10 vocational school students? And the third is, what are the students' difficulties in learning reading narrative text using scientific approach with ICT to grade 10 vocational school students? And the objectives of this research are to know the scenario on and implementation of teaching reading narrative text using scientific approach with ICT to grade 10 vocational school students, to know the teacher and student responses toward teaching reading narrative text using scientific approach with ICT to grade 10 vocational school students, and the last is to identify the students' difficulties in learning reading narrative text using scientific approach with ICT to grade 10 vocational school students. And the next is significance of the research. The first is for the teacher. It's as a motivation to improve the skills in utilizing technology in order to be used in appropriate learning strategies, then as information on how the learning process that implements the scientific approach assisted by Wattpad application takes place, as well as a special consideration material in selecting an approach and media to improve the ability of students in solving problems related to reading narrative text. The second is for the students. It's as an information about how important reading skill is, and then acknowledging how the English teaching learning process in general, especially the narrative text topic. And the last is for English learners in general. It is as an information about how important reading skill is, and then acknowledging how the English teaching learning process in general, especially in the narrative text topic. The next is Definition of key terms. The first is narrative text is one of English topic that requires students' reading skill. It is an imaginary story that contains generic structure, grammar review, and value or lesson of the story that could reflect the reality of life towards story. The indicator that will be taken for this reading narrative test are showing general overview of the story, specifying the purpose of the text or the author's purpose, specifying the detailed information in the text, both implicit and explicit content toward the story, and the last is explaining the meaning of certain words or expression in the text. The next is the second, scientific approach is a learning activity designed in such a way that students are actively involved in teaching and learning activities or uh, KBM so that they can finally control concepts, laws, or principles in the material with the following characteristics. The first is observing. At this stage, students observe the image displayed by the teacher on the GeoGebra software to identify problem found. The second is asking. At this stage, the student or teacher asks about the problem found and formulates them. The third is experimenting, where students try to find and collect information from various sources, such as textbooks or the internet, to solve problems that have been formulated. The fourth is associating or reasoning, which is processing some information that has been found to find a connection between one information and another so that it can draw conclusions from the linkage found. And the last is communicating. This is the final stage in the scientific approach where students make report and present the results of the discussion in front of the class to their friends. The third is Wattpad application is a reading and writing platform in which used in order to help students learn and understand the material easily and also help to catch the students' interest on following the activity interestingly. And the fourth is WhatsApp group is a group in WhatsApp consists of teacher, supervisor, teacher, and students as a virtual class that will be chosen by the researcher to order to build two way of communication between teacher and students just like in the classroom. The next is methodology and research procedure. The first procedure is preparation stage. At this stage, the writer manages the licensing, then creating a teaching material in the form of learning implementation plan or RPP on reading narrative text, material using Wattpad application, student activity sheet or LAS, also test and non-test question or questionnaire sheets, observation and interviews. The second is implementation. At this stage, the writer carried out research that had been planned at one vocational school in Bandung. They are interviewing students and teachers about English learning, carrying out pre-tests to check students' initial abilities, implementing teaching material as many as 3 times meetings, carrying out post-tests to check students' learning outcomes, and carrying out a questionnaire of the scale of teacher and student attitudes regarding in the learning response that has been implemented. And the third is evaluating stage. This stage is the final stage in the research conducted by the writer, called collecting, analyzing, and describing conclusion from the results of the study. Then evaluate what is inappropriate that needs to be improved in the learning that has been implemented. The next is subject of the research. The subject in this study are grade 10 Mahaputra Vocational School students, which consists of 11 male students and 15 female students. Based on the preliminary study the writer did, the students had the following characteristic. The first one is that the reading skill is still low. This is seen based on the data of the students' grades during the English study in the previous semester, still obtained many grades under the minimum achievement criteria or KKM. And the second is the ability of students learning is varied. or has heterogeneous abilities. So teachers should know the strengths or the weaknesses of the students. The next is instruments of the research. The instruments of the research are the first is interview, the second is observation sheets, and the third is written tests to measure students' reading comprehension toward narrative text, or attitude scale to measure teacher and student responses. The instruments are then will be consulted with the guidance lecturer to have the validity of the content. As for empirical validity, the instrument is tested to know its validity, reliability, differentiation power, and difficulty index. And the last is data processing procedure. All of data in this study was processed using Microsoft Excel to find out the extent of the class, then understanding about the reading narrative text, also the description of learning implementation using an ICT media assisted scientific approach. That's all from me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.